Hello there, geeks and gamers. I'm MarcTheCyborg, and today I'm going to tell you about a game that I've been playing, which I think you might enjoy. So without further ado... Indivisible is an RPG from Lab Zero Games, the team behind the cult fighting game series Skullgirls. The thing which should be immediately apparent about Indivisible is the striking art style and animation. This game looks like a Disney cartoon or an anime, but it's rendered in real time with silky smooth animations. While this is achieved with 3D models and all manner of effects, shaders, and filters, the result is undeniably impressive. The story of Indivisible begins with a prologue which introduces you to the battle system and sets the stage for events which will happen later in the game. But once the game starts proper, you take control of Ajna, a sassy teenage girl with a very unique superpower. Essentially, Ajna has the ability to warp people into her head, which creates an in-universe reason for the rest of the party characters to disappear during the exploration segments, only to suddenly appear during battle or when a story segment comes up which is relevant to them. In most JRPGs which have this happen, characters just emerge from the player character with no explanation, as most players just assume they would actually be walking around together, and their removal is to keep the game interface from getting too cluttered. So it's certainly cheeky that Lab Zero thought of a reason to have this phenomenon make sense within the context of the story. There's also a functional reason for this, as dungeon maps in Indivisible are presented like a 2D platforming game, so controlling a whole group of characters would certainly seem strange. The platform jumping in the game appears pretty rudimentary at first, but as you move further into the game, several new items and abilities are granted to Ajna, which make the dungeon crawling quite engaging. It's an interesting element to have in an RPG, and adds sort of a Metroidvania quality to Indivisible. I've been putting down and coming back to Indivisible so many times over the past few months that if the gap in play was long, I would often find myself forgetting how many traversal abilities Ajna had acquired. Luckily, the game has a handy abilities menu, which acts as a nice little refresher. The platforming isn't going to compete with Ori and the Blind Forest or a Super Mario game, but it's definitely a nice change of pace from the standard top-down overworld maps that you'd find in most RPGs. When you encounter an enemy in one of these dungeons, you can use one of Ajna's attacks to voluntarily trigger a battle sequence, which will give your party first strike advantage. Likewise for an enemy if they manage to hit her first. The art style stays the same during battles, but the camera shifts to an isometric angle to accommodate your 3 other party members emerging from Ajna's head and assuming their battle positions. The battle system in Indivisible is tons of fun. When reading up on the game, it seems like it was inspired by the original PlayStation RPG Valkyrie Profile, but I can't speak to that personally as I never got around to playing it myself, and I don't want to try to make a hipster credibility claim unless it's earned. I respect you all too damn much. What I do know is that the fights in Indivisible are an interesting spin on active time battles. Fundamentally, it is a turn-based combat system, but it's about as close to feeling real-time as it could possibly be. You have 4 characters, each mapped to a controller face button. You can't move the characters around freely, but you can decide when they attack and which type of attack they use. It's more dynamic than a menu-based system though. Basically, in conjunction with the direction on the analog stick or the D-pad, you can combine attacks from any of the 4 characters up to the 3 action charges they have, which do replenish over time. If a character is out of action charges, they can still block with their same face button. Blocking mitigates a bit of damage, but more importantly, executing a perfectly timed block will charge your special meter. Holding the special modifier button, which I personally had mapped to the right bumper on my Xbox controller, and pressing one of the character attack buttons up to 3 times will activate a special move akin to a super combo in a fighting game. You can have 3 characters use their level 1 special, one use a level 1 and another use a level 2, or burn all 3 on one massive attack from one character, which in Ajna's case effectively makes her go Super Saiyan and do a Kamehameha. I haven't completed Indivisible yet, so I can't speak in any certain terms about the story's quality, but the premise is your typical bad man is trying to awaken an ancient evil, but the protagonist has a bit of that ancient evil's power premise. It's really typical JRPG stuff. What sets Indivisible's story apart is the massive roster of charismatic characters and irreverent comedic tone that everything has. This may hit or miss with you depending on your tolerance for self-awareness and fantasy. The characters have a lot of charm, but they also have a lot of sass, and there's definitely an element of ha, lol, so random to the writing, which personally I got into after a while, and I really grew to enjoy people like the comically sadistic mage Razmi. Although Tirani is best girl. The characters are all quite unique in combat as well. No two fight exactly alike, and everyone involves at least a bit of effort to learn their specific mechanics. Though I found that having a damage dealer, a ranged attacker, and a healer tended to work best. So at a certain point, I wasn't experimenting with all the different party members as much as I could have been. Indivisible is a game I've been moving through slowly off and on, but it's always been fun to come back to, so if you're looking for a modern indie RPG with an interesting mix of platforming gameplay and an extremely fun battle system, give Indivisible a shot. You can find it on GOG, Steam, PS4, Xbox One, and eventually Nintendo Switch, but no release date for the Switch version has been announced at this time. Just so we're clear, this series is not intended to be full detailed reviews, just initial impressions of games. Some games I cover here will be games I've completed, some, like Indivisible, will be games I've played off and on, and some will be games I've only recently started but which have made a big enough impression on me that I want to talk about them. I don't plan on doing a lot of negative coverage on here, as I honestly don't like the idea of investing the time required to make a video to talk about a game I didn't like or didn't enjoy. With that said, just because I have covered a game here doesn't mean it's a flawless must-buy title. Consumer advocacy is my highest value, and I really want to help break the industry paradigm of new game out, you buy new game or you're a loser. Which is why I will be covering older games, no matter how many "this video is 4 years too late" comments that I get. Which I have gotten a few of, and I don't care. You should still play Ori and the Blind Forest, and you should definitely play Vanquish. I'll also cover indie games which need more spotlight than they tend to get, and every once in a while I will tackle a new release, as you can bet your toned muscular booty that I'm going to be playing the living hell out of Doom Eternal in March. I'll do my best to analyze them objectively and attempt to be clear about whenever I'm inserting my opinion, but you may disagree with me, and every so often I will get things wrong. So be sure to hop in the comments and let me know, as it'll help me learn and become a better content creator. Or if there's a game you'd like to see covered, give me some suggestions, as I've already had a few ideas sparked by games which members of the Geeks and Gamers community have brought up in the comments sections. With all that said, for Gaming with Geeks, I'm MarcTheCyborg, and you are extremely attractive.